Warm Heart, ang podcast na nagbibigay ng self-care tips sa gitna ng stressful na pandemya. Warm Heart, ang podcast na nagpapaalalang mahalaga ang pag-iingat sa sarili. Dahil kami dito sa Warm Heart ay concerned sa inyo.
Magandang araw po sa ating mga ka-warm heart. Welcome po sa ikatlong episode ng ating self-care podcast. Sa episode ngayon ng Warm Heart, mapapakinggan po natin ang kwento ng Itbayat Batanes bilang komunidad at kung paano nito hinarap ang unang sigwada ng local transmission ng COVID-19 sa lugar. Mapapakinggan din ang best practices sa nagpapatuloy na pangangalaga ng kaligtasan ng mamamayan ng Itbayat Batanes sa gitna ng pandemya. Malalaman rin natin sa episode na ito ang self-care management sa perspektibo ng isang frontliner at hands-on na disaster management officer. Lahat ng ito ay ibabahagi po sa atin ni Municipal Local Government Operations Officer o MLGOO, Ms. Charmaine Gato. Si Ma'am Charo po ay ginawa rin ng pagkilala sa kanyang serbisyo bilang MLGOO sa ilalim ng Capacity Development Awards for Catalysts of Excellence ng Department of the Interior and Local Government. Si Ma'am Charo ay isa sa maraming frontliners ng Itbayat Batanes na nagpamalas ng kanilang dedikasyon upang pagsilbihan ng komunidad sa panahon ng krisis pangkalusugan. Ika-12 sa buwan ng Setyembre 2021 nang itala ng Provincial Government of Batanes sa Facebook page nito ang unang aktibong mga kaso ng COVID-19 na itinuturing na community transmission. Ibig sabihin, ang mga nagpositibo sa COVID-19 ay hindi galing sa labas ng probinsya o di kaya'y walang history of travel. Community transmission ding maituturing kung laganap na ang hawaan at hindi na matukoy ang pagkakaugnay ng mga kaso ng sakit. Sa ngayon, kukumustahin na po natin ang isa sa frontliners na nangunguna sa pagharap ng hamon ng COVID-19 sa Itbayat. Hello Ma'am Charo, kumusta po kayo at kumusta ang Itbayat sa gitna ng pandemyang COVID-19?
Hi Bea, magandang araw sa iyo. I'm really grateful for inviting me here sa iyong The Warm Heart podcast series para maibahagi sa inyo ang kwento ng Itbayat, particularly on the management of COVID-19 cases. As of ngayon, ang Municipal Task Force is focusing its effort on sustaining yung mga na-establish na natin ng mga precautionary measures. At the same time, patuloy na ina-update yung mga protocols para maging akma dun sa mga pangangailangan natin sa ngayon.
Paano mo ilalarawan ang disaster risk management ng Itbayat Batanes kaugnay ng COVID-19 pandemic o di kaya ano ang mga best practices ng Itbayat pagdating sa COVID response?
Ang COVID-19 ay isang halimbawa ng biological disaster. So katulad na lang ng mga ibang natural disasters na na-experience ng Itbayat for the previous years, kailangan din natin ang disaster management for COVID-19 para hindi lumala yung possible na impact nito sa ating community. So siguro i-share ko sa iyo yung mga particular actions taken ng Itbayat as a whole, particularly sa una dun sa aspeto ng preparedness, ikalawa yung sa aspect naman ng response o nung pagdating na nung COVID case doon, and then yung mga ways forward natin. So under sa preparedness, meron tayong particular actions na ginawa para paghandaan in case na magkaroon ng COVID-19 sa Itbayat. So under sa leadership, sobrang grateful tayo because we have been blessed with leaders na meron talagang foresight, yung ability to foresee yung possible na magiging kalagayan ng Itbayat kung ito ay mapasukan ng COVID-19. So dahil dyan, nagkaroon na tayo ng mga precautionary measures as early as February 2020, no? Nung I think 3 pa lang ang cases noon sa buong Pilipinas. And then ikalawa is ang tinutukan ng leadership ay mag-organize ng isang municipal task force for COVID-19 which is primarily responsible sa formulation ng mga localized protocols. So during that time, wala pa tayong mga protocols from the national level na binababa sa LGU. So, ang ginawa is nag-come up ang Municipal Task Force ng protocols for that. So, ikalawa is yung sa responders. As part ng preparation, nag-establish tayo ng tinatawag na incident management team for worst case scenario. So, yung kinonsider natin dito na worst case scenario ay kapag nagkaroon tayo ng kahit isang kaso ng COVID-19 positive. So, siya na yung magiging worst case scenario towards na yon doon sa possible na outbreak. So, dahil doon na-establish o nabuo yung tinatawag natin na incident management team, which is kinabibilangan ito ng hindi lamang ng health sector kundi ng security teams and other teams din na na-create kasi naniniwala tayo na hindi lamang trabaho ng health sector yung mag-respond sa COVID-19. And then for this responders, ang health cluster din nanguna siya sa pag-equip, pag-capacitate by conducting ng trainings and orientations regarding COVID-19 sa ating mga IMT members and even ibang mga community volunteers. And then sa community level naman, nag-exert talaga ng effort sa information dissemination to ensure na tama yung impormasyon na kakarating sa ating mga kababayan para hindi ito mag-cause ng panic and commotion. So, pinangunahan naman ito ng mga kasamahan natin from our rural health unit. And at the same time, ang Municipal Task Force also implemented yung travel restriction. During that time, wala pa kasing restriction ang province sa mga inbound na passengers, particularly on international and local tourists. So, that time, we started sa Itbayat to restrict yung pagpasok ng mga turista particularly. So, sila yung unang hindi na pinayagan muna na pumasok sa Itbayat. And then, we also limit yung pagpasok ng mga pati na yung mga government employees na maaring pupunta sa Itbayat for certain activities. So, yun ay nasi-screen yun to ensure na hindi unnecessary yung pagpunta sa Itbayat. So, yun siguro yung mga particular na actions na we took for the preparedness measures. Nung nagkaroon tayo ng COVID-19 case sa Itbayat, I think sometime in September, mid-September 2021, ito yung mga nagiging actions natin in response to that. And then, I'd also like to share with you mga overarching guidelines na meron tayo. Una is to have a clear focus on the goal, which is to contain yung COVID-19 para hindi na ito dumami. And then, to set protocols based on available resources and facilities. So, katulad ng nabanggit ko sa'yo is kulang tayo sa facilities because of the earthquake that happened in 2019. So, ang mga facilities natin, puro under construction pa sila. And then, the third one is to get the people to know and understand rationale behind protocol set. This is to really encourage them to act not because natatakot sila dun sa maaaring parusa ng hindi nila pagsunod sa protocols, kundi susunod sila sa protocols kasi naiintindihan nila yung risk at possible impact kapag hindi sila sumunod doon. So, sa actions taken natin, katulad nung nakwento ko na sa iyo before, the first thing that happened is yung establishing ng incident command post immediately after first case in Itbayat. So, we scheduled teams to take turns sa 24/7 duty ang post. And ang purpose ng command post is to be the central coordinating body, especially na nung panahon na yun, kasi just after the typhoon yun eh. So, communication lines, like all communication lines are down, pati yung the handheld radios which we usually use kapag under disaster ang community, yun ang ginagamit. However, nasira din yung transmitter noon. So, totally wala tayong communications. And alam natin na coordination is very critical for the establishment of systems of operations. So, the incident command post activities include din yung drafting ng localized protocols for presentation sa task force na yun ay ifa-finalize ng task force at mag-i-input sila doon, magko-comment para siya na yung ilalabas natin sa community. So that's the first activity or action we took, establishing of the incident command post. The second is the reorganization of the incident management team for COVID-19. So as I mentioned to you earlier, meron na tayong existing na na-organize na IMT from 2020 pa, I think as early as March. However, during that time, meron tayong 3 doctors in the island. And then, kahit papano is, mas marami pa tayong tao dun sa organizational structure that time. However, comes 2021, nung actual na merong COVID-19 case, isa na lang ang natira na doktor sa ating isla in the person of Doc Jen. So, ang nangyari is kailangan nating isaayos or ulitin yung tasking and management ng IMT. So, since kulang tayo ng tao, kulang tayo ng facilities, we only have to activate yung mga necessary teams para hindi ma-exhaust yung resources na meron tayo. So, initially, we activated at least 3 teams, yung IEC or Information Education and Communication team, contact tracing team, and then yung security team. So yung IEC team natin is focus sa information dissemination and for giving updates, particularly sa community, and then yung pag-come up sa command post updates Facebook page. So ang ginagawa ng IEC team natin, sila yung gumagawa lahat ng mga bandilyo. So, we conduct bandilyo like morning and gabi, particularly dun sa kasagsagan ng ating mga COVID-19 cases. So, aside sa pagbabandilyo gamit yung Itbayatan, kailangan din nating isalin dun sa Tagalog, especially that we also have community members who are not locals ng Itbayat. So, usually, ganun ang ginagawa natin sa pagbabandilyo. And then, aside from that, lahat ng binabandilyo kailangan din maipost online sa ating FB page, yung command post updates page na nagsaserve din as reference na rin ng mga tao and even those who are not from Itbayat na hindi nakakarinig ng bandilyo. So, gusto natin na yung tamang information mararating niya not only yung mga kababayan natin na sa Itbayat, kundi pati na rin yung mga tao na nasa labas sa Itbayat who needs to be informed, particularly yung mga bumabiyahe that time. Ang team leader natin sa IEC team ay si SB Jessie and also assisted by other members ng command post. And then, our second team na activated is yung contact tracing team, which was led ng ating RHU team, si Ma'am Christine, together with our barangay health workers and barangay nutrition scholars. Also, they are also assisted din ng ating mga kasamahan from PNP. For our security team, pinangungunahan din ito ng PNP, ng Philippine Coast Guard, CAFGO, our friends from Philippine Marines, our barangay officials and tanods, at mga community volunteers na rin. Another action taken by the Municipal Task Force dun sa as a response ay yung pag-establish ng communication system. Naniniwala tayo na establishing yung efficient na communication system will really help a lot in containing yung cases natin sa Itbayat, especially na napakaliit lang ng ating population. So, doon parang gumawa tayo ng flow kung kanino magre-report at kung ano ang magiging actions, kung sino ang tamang tao na magre-response kapag may nare-report na mga cases. So, first is, during sa conduct ng mga bandilyo, sinasabi na doon lahat yung mga contact numbers and even pinupost yun sa ating command post updates page para ma-ensure natin na magiging maganda yung flow nung pag-send ng complaint, pag-receive ng complaint at pag-respond dun sa complaint na yon. Nilagay po natin dun sa mga contact numbers na kung ang complaint mo ay nakakaramdam ka ng sintomas, you have to contact yung ating ang hotline number ng Rural Health Unit po natin. At kung meron tayong other medical concerns na not necessarily COVID-related, ang hotline number na iyong sisendan po ng text message ay ang Itbayat District Hospital. At kung ang concern mo po ay mga violations ng local protocols, particularly ay isisend po natin yung complaint na yon sa number ng ating mga kasamahan sa PNP or sa security team. At kung yari meron yung, especially during our quarantine period, marami po kasing concerns particularly sa tubig or other provisions. So ang kukontakin po nila ay yung mga contact numbers po ng mga punong barangay na nakapost din po sa ating Facebook page, at the same time ay naibabandili din po yun. Ang kahalagahan po na meron po tayong sistemang ganito ay para maging mabilis yung pagresponde sa mga pangangailangan ng mga tao. Although hindi natin masabi na perfectly implemented yung mga systems na ginawa natin na ganito, pero nakita natin yung impact, especially dun sa mga complaints na na-receive, kahit papano ay narespondihan natin ng agad-agad. Particularly yung nakita natin per priority na yung pinaka nangangailangan ng intervention ng task force. Sa lahat ng naging operations natin on the ground, ginamit natin yung tinatawag natin na whole of community approach. So this is basically coming from the recognition that we do not have enough capacity to address our concerns as a community. This time, yung COVID-19. But if each community stakeholders work side by side with the frontliners, then we can do so much. So this is what we experienced even from the past disasters na we had sa community natin. Yung concept ng whole of community approach came from the introduction ng President's Executive Order number 70, or yung application of the whole of nation approach in addressing terrorism and violent extremism. I think this was introduced last year or the other year. As the MLGOO, I discussed this during our quarterly meetings in the Municipal Peace and Order Council, and while we recognize that this is not necessarily applicable sa community natin kasi wala naman tayong cases ng violent extremism, yung ating mayor before, Mayor Raul Desagon, made it a point that we will embrace the concept of oneness in addressing yung challenges ng Itbayat community. And case in point, yung drought, typhoons, COVID-19. So it is just amazing, no, kung paano yung concept na ito nagmaterialize into becoming a way of life dito sa Itbayat, which was evidently shown during our fight against COVID-19. So, case in point, we have farmers bringing in yung harvests nila, like 3 to 4 sacks of watermelon, and then yung mga fisher folks nagdadala ng fresh fish, and other private individuals pouring yung in-kind donations nila and even cash donations for use ng frontliners. Ito ay dinadala na lang nila sa command post, tapos kami sa command post distribute ito sa mga nakadeploy na frontliners. Actually, lahat ng ito ay unsolicited and sometimes coming from anonymous individuals. Hindi lamang community members na present sa Itbayat, kundi even those community mga taga-Itbayat na nasa ibang bansa na hindi namin kilala hanggang ngayon. Sila yung nagpapadala kasi I believe nakatulong din na yung na-update sila dun sa mga effective na pag-disseminate natin ng information utilizing yung ating command post update Facebook page. So, ito ay mga unsolicited and yet community members saw it as their fair share sa pagpapakita ng support nila as we do the actual operations on the ground. And not only this, but we get encouragement messages, and these are such a big thing for all of us, especially na we are already drained, not only physically but more so emotionally. And aside from these kinds of support, we being at the forefront of ground operations recognize the great role of the community's utmost cooperation in the observance ng localized protocols na ini-implement ng Municipal Task Force. In fact, dun sa unang bandilyo natin, ang Itbayat nagmukha siyang ghost town, no? At lahat ng tao ay nasa loob. And that lasted for almost a month. Imagine the hassle, especially sa mga nagtatrabaho ng arawan. But because they saw that their obedience to the protocols na niset ng task force is their way of contributing to contain the COVID-19, hindi mahirap yung mangampanya ka for their cooperation.
4 na mahalagang punto ang nabanggit sa atin ni Ma'am Charo pagdating sa best practices ng Itbayat Batanes on COVID response. Una rito, ang establishment ng command post. Ikalawa, ang reorganization ng incident management team for COVID-19. Ikatlo, ang communication system. At ikaapat, ang whole of community approach. Ngayon naman, puntahan natin ang isa pang interesting na tanong. Marami ang humanga dati at COVID-free ang Batanes. Naniniwala ka bang maibabalik ito sa ganitong estado? At kung oo, paano gawing COVID-free muli ang Batanes?
Going back to that state now when Batanes is still COVID-free is, I believe personally, no longer possible. Nasa atin na yung virus eh. It has entered our very shores. Nasa sistema na ng community. But this, I believe, we can certainly make ways to sustainably contain the virus. Ibig sabihin, to come up with precautionary measures para hindi na muling ma-experience ng community yung transmission. We cannot do much about the presence of it sa atin, pero we can do so much on managing and controlling its presence. The greater challenge really is yung pag-establish ng systems, new systems that while the virus remains to be a threat, the community can still function with a sense of normalcy. Yung hindi lang mag-focus sa survival, kundi sa thriving as a community, despite yung constant presence ng threat na yun. Yung parang part of the community focuses on the development while being equipped as well for war against COVID-19 or whatever disaster that would be. After all, yun naman yung concept ng resilience, no? We do not only survive, but we try to bounce back better.
Ayan, bibigyan din lang po natin ang pahayag ni Ma'am Charo ukol sa kung naniniwala ba siya na maibabalik pa ang pagiging COVID-free ng Batanes. At sinabi nga niya na we cannot do much about the presence of the virus sa atin, pero we can do so much on managing and controlling its presence. Samantala, ang susunod na tanong is, it takes the true heart of a public servant to let herself be available 24/7 to accommodate the needs of our kababayan in this time of pandemic. For sure, may mga challenges ka personally. Paano mo ilalarawan ang personal na karanasan mo bilang frontliner sa gitna ng pandemya? Ano-ano yung mga pressure na nararanasan mo na sa tingin mo ay nakakaapekto sa iyong physical, mental, emotional at social well-being?
To make myself available 24/7 sa command post is not really a big challenge for me. In fact, I was really enjoying it kasi na-challenge talaga ako mag-isip and get the chance to build friendship with fellow public servants even during that time ng mako-consider natin na disaster. It's something I always invest upon kasi I strongly believe that walang success yung efforts ko personally kahit gaano ko i-commit ang sarili ko dun if I don't have a solid team to implement that. And having that kind of team starts from building relationship with people who have that same passion and burden as yours. Yung beautiful friendships built during this difficult season is what made me keep on despite yung fact that I was already emotionally crumbling. Yung command post team, the medical team, the security teams, barangay officials and volunteers, yung garahe boys, the community as a whole, they became the silver linings of this very dark season for us and for me personally.
Maganda po yung pahayag ni Ma'am Charo sa ating katanungan, kaya iha-highlight lang po natin ang key point niya. Invest on building relationships with fellow public servants, people who have the same passion and burden. Ayan. Next question na po tayo. Paano mo minamanage ang stress na kabahagi ng pagiging COVID-19 frontliner? O paano ka nakaka-cope sa stress na hatid ng pagiging COVID-19 frontliner?
As to stress management, like whether we admit it or not, nandyan talaga yung stress. Although wala akong ma-share sa'yo like a perfect formula how to shoo stress away, no? Pero I'd like to share with you some principles na natutunan ko personally which helped me a lot para mabawasan yung impact ng stress sa akin. Particularly nung nakaraan na operation sa Itbayat. First is yung to value the people around you. You know, the team I was working with, grabe ang support system that I observed na we give and get from each other. We were all on the same boat and so madali naming maintindihan yung bawat isa. Plus, hindi man namin nakuha yung ine-expect namin na support from other stakeholders, na-overwhelm naman kami ng sobra-sobra sa support ng community and that's really more than enough talaga. And then another thing is yung to process what you feel. Isang bagay din na natutunan ko ito from 2019's earthquake incident, no, is to process kung ano man yung mga nararamdaman namin. And we may not have been able to process everything, but just taking light moments with the team for kumustahan and talking about things that burdened us ay sobrang nakatulong ito to keep us all sane. And then yung third one, which I see as foundational talaga sa stress management and even sa ibang aspeto ng buhay natin, is to be hopeful. And with this, mahalaga na alam din natin kung saan or kung kanino nakaangkla yung hope na yon. Sa mga experiences ko sa Itbayat on disaster operations mula earthquake hanggang COVID, I would have given up early on kung ako lang talaga kasi nakakapagod, nakaka-drain. More than physically, ay mentally and emotionally. But you know what kept me going? I put my hope in God, knowing na inaalaw niya lahat yung nangyayaring ito for a greater purpose. At kung mag-give up ako sa stage na to, hindi ko na ma-experience yung greater purpose na yun. We cannot put our hope sa tao kasi hindi siya perfect. Lalo tayong nasistress kapag mag-fail yung expectation natin sa kanya. And we cannot also put our hope sa pera or sa resources natin. Dahil alam nating bagyo lang o lindol, pwedeng mawala yun lahat. And we cannot put our hope sa circumstances because hindi rin natin yun makokontrol. Like, we really need to anchor our hope kay God who is perfect, who won't leave us kahit anong disaster pa yan, and who is almighty and sovereign, one who is truly in control of everything.
Related pa rin po ito sa nauna nating tanong, ang mental health care ay syempre para sa sarili at sa iba. Binahagi mo na ang iyong self-care management. Ang tanong ko naman ngayon is paano mo naman ipinapakita ang suporta sa mga kasama mong frontline workers na maaaring nakararanas ng stress sa trabaho?
One of the things talaga na gusto kong ipakita talaga sa mga kasamahan ko sa team is yung support ko for them. I may not be able to support them like resources-wise kasi wala naman talaga akong maiibibigay. Wala akong hawak na pondo sa kamay ko. Pero what I saw na sobrang nakakatulong, kasi na-experience ko yun personally, is to keep on appreciating them privately and publicly. So, yun nga, as much as I want to compensate their sacrifices na nakita kong ginawa nila para sa community, hindi ko talaga yun kaya. And I believe words of affirmations, while it do not cost much, bring so much encouragement not only dun sa nakaka-receive but even dun sa nagbibigay nito. So, you know, if we all share gratitude, lalo't higit sa mga panahong ganito, walang magiging lugar ang negativities. And it will even help us to get through all yung mga times na sobra tayong nadidepress, nasistress, at na-overwhelm dun sa mga kaganapan sa paligid natin.
Last na lang po, Ma'am Charo, mensahe o panawagan mo sa ating mga kababayan kaugnay ng laban kontra COVID-19?
Some of my takeaways during our experience sa response noong September 2021 during our first COVID-19 case in Itbayat is that, and also can be a message na rin panawagan sa ating mga kababayan, is that our individual efforts will not make significant impact except for siguro possible recognition for certain individuals. But if we really pull together our ideas, our efforts, our very limited resources, and then work together in a whole of community approach, so much will be accomplished. And we may lose our individual identities in the process, but we will gain greater thing, the general welfare of the community, which is our primordial goal for all the sacrifices we are doing para sa bayan. And also, may I share with you some lines shared by then Mayor Raul Dasagon on strengthening our civil societies. He said, "We are in the position to serve, help, and cooperate with each other. We can never discount the role of each other regardless of how small it could be, because collectively we can make a great impact. You have different capacities and advocacies, but planned actions toward one direction are never in vain. You have a special role in the rebuilding of our community."
Okay, so malinaw po ang essence ng mensahe o panawagan ni Ma'am Charo at iyan ang whole of community approach. Na kapag nagtutulungan at mayroong kooperasyon, malayo ang ating mararating at marami tayong magagawa. So gusto ko lang pong magpasalamat. Maraming salamat Ma'am Charo sa pagpapaunlak sa aming imbitasyon na mag-guest dito sa Warm Heart. Nais po namin para sa iyo from the Warm Heart team ang magkaroon ng mabuting kalusugan upang patuloy na maibahagi ang iyong kaalaman at karanasan para sa ating bayan. So God bless po at mabuhay po kayo at ang lahat ng Batanes Frontliners. Dito po nagtatapos ang isa na namang episode ng Warm Heart. Take care po mga ka-warm-hearted people. Ito po ang inyong host, Bea Gaza. Hanggang sa muli.
Warm Heart, ang podcast na nagbibigay ng self-care tips sa gitna ng stressful na pandemya. Warm Heart, ang podcast na nagpapaalalang mahalaga ang pag-iingat sa sarili. Dahil kami dito sa Warm Heart ay concerned sa inyo.